So I've been, with all this free time I've had, I've been doing a lot of like reflecting on the past, or just on the past, I guess. I turned 30 in a couple months, and I feel like my 20s have been pretty crazy in terms of events and things happening. But um, like I mentioned in my last video, I spent time in the military, and a good portion of my 20s was spent in the military. So um, at I joined right out of high school. I graduated in 2015, and I enlisted that summer, swore in July, and I left by October. And I spent 8 years in the Navy, and I've been thinking. I've never actually like sat down and actually like reflected on that 8 years. I feel like when you're in the military, it happens like it goes by so quick. Like the days time becomes like a it becomes one. It like everything kind of just jams into one, and time just doesn't even feel real. Because you could spend 2 years somewhere, and then like it feels like it's only been like a month. Next thing you know, you're moving on to a different location. But that whole 8 years feels like a moment or stitch in time that, looking back at, I don't really know. I can't really tell if it was good times or if it was bad times. Um, I do know that it was definitely needed. I know that like with me, how I am, my personality, how I am now, I feel like that growth in that level of discipline was definitely needed for the person that I was back then. And I'll be honest, whenever I was growing up, I was an emo fuck. Like I was I wouldn't say I was a scene kid, but I was like listening to fucking Stained and Chevelle. Like I was listening to like a lot of like divorced dad shit, as they call it nowadays, right? Just tells you my age, right? And so I spent a lot of time in self isolation as a teenager, just in my room, not wanting to talk to nobody. Just leave me the fuck alone. I'm gonna listen to Linkin Park and play Call of Duty. And growing up, my teenage years, I wouldn't say it wasn't bad. Like I was in a good environment, but I definitely had my own set of issues going on in my head, which obviously nowadays I recognize as I had depression. And I'm diagnosed with depression and anxiety nowadays. But obviously, even as a teenager, I knew that, like, why am I so addicted to just being sad all the time? And so, but at the same time, I grew up in a very strict household. And so I was, I was emo, but I was also very, like, I knew what needed to be done in terms of responsibilities. And I think when I joined the military, I needed, like, I needed that push to know that I can at least make it in the real world, because I was still stuck in my stuck in my head in terms of not knowing if I'm even worth living. Not to get too graphic with it, but when I turned 18, I graduated. When I left for boot camp, it wasn't really. I was nervous, but I had a very strict dad, so it really wasn't anything I wasn't already used to. Like my dad was not military. My whole family is actually not military at all. I'm first gen. So when I went to boot camp, I was used to cleaning and you know getting yelled at and doing things over and over and over again. That part really wasn't the hardest part of it. I think the just getting used to a new environment, obviously, but the thing is with boot camp is that they teach you how to adapt. Things are constantly changing, and the biggest takeaways is adapting and overcoming to anything that happens. The Navy is run off controlled chaos, and it's shown no matter where you're at that something one day can be completely different than the other, with how things are constantly changing in the world. But I look at those 8 years, and a part of me feels like I really didn't do shit. And And I'm gonna try not to bring up like my military stuff in later videos, just because I feel like that's after a while kind of beating a dead horse. So I just kind of wanted to get this lore out the way. But in those 8 years, like I got out honorably, and full benefits, blah blah blah. Um, but I feel like I didn't really do anything important. Like obviously, I joined, I deployed, I stood watch with a rifle. Like going on my first deployment, which I'll probably leave that story for another one because that's a whole nother can of beans. But that deployment, you join the military to deploy to go do a mission, and I did that. So that solidified that part of it. But in reality, I feel like there was so much more I could have done, and there was so much more. There was so much that I probably shouldn't have done, and there's a lot that I should have done differently. Now, um, the first, like, I want to say 4 years was definitely adjusting to like having the government over your shoulder constantly. I think that was the main thing about those 8 years. That was probably the hardest. Was you are constant, like even though whenever I became a reservist, I still had that looming shadow over me that honestly gave me fucking debilitating anxiety all the time with everything. And granted, um, I feel like there's kind of a weird yin and yang with active duty and as a reservist, because when you're active duty, you're there 24/7. Like you know what to do. You're doing it every day. There's no your schedule. As a reservist, like you have to literally restructure and reshape your plans for, like, okay, I have to think about 6 months from now. I have to think about a year from now. I could be deployed for a year, or maybe if I do deploy, I go on another deployment, or I have to worry about getting my job back whenever I come home. And so that part was always probably the hardest. But I'll be honest and say that, like, there was moments where I feel like a lot of it was just me just wasting time with myself. I would show up, especially as a reservist, to drills, and I would just be there, and I would be excited, but especially towards the end, I I just started to dread every aspect of it. Like the motivation just left me, and towards the end, like I was drinking way more. I was drinking a lot. Towards the end of whenever I was still on my final year, and I just stopped giving a shit just about how I looked, about just even just showing up. At that point, I just showed up for the weekend pay, and at that point, if I'm just there for the money, then there really is no point in me trying to get motivated like to do anything else. But I still wish that maybe I could have. I wasn't gonna reenlist um, during this second administration, if you know what I mean. Just because I was just already just sick of politics. I was sick of just when you're in the military under three different presidents, and everybody knows what happened in 2020. The world, everything just becomes so, like, you don't even know what you're doing anymore. Like you don't even know what like what to expect, and you have a sense of morality in you that is conflicting with what the Navy wants from you, and you just don't know if you can even show up to at least attempt to give them what they want. Like I was used to flipping a switch whenever I would put my uniform on and being able to be that person, but eventually I was just like, I can't pretend to be this person no more, because I'm just not this person. And I really wish that I could have. I wish I could have gotten the help that I had needed to get, because in 2017 I spent some time in a mental hospital, and the Navy helped me. Like they didn't kick me out. They didn't say I was in trouble. They helped me with that situation, And a year later, I was deployed. So, you know, I went from being at my lowest point to being in a position to where, I was actually finally doing something important rather than just showing up and being on a computer all day. But even during that deployment, I still feel like I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't happy. I feel like I wasn't being or doing the things that I know are going to bring me the most happiness. And to any 22, 23 year old who's overseas making the money that I was making would not complain about that in the slightest. Like, they would eat it up. But for some weird reason, like, I was making all this money and I was giving it all away because I just didn't give a shit. Like, because I just wasn't happy. Like, I wasn't, I just, I was over in a place of the world where anyone would kill to be over there. But for me, it was all fake and it was all just smoke and mirrors, and everything around me just felt so disingenuine. And granted, there was it helped my bank account a lot, but then eventually I was just like, I don't care about any of this. I never cared about the money. I never cared about the looking a certain way. Like, I just want to be able to do the thing that makes me the proudest, that makes me happy. And I think especially after I got home from that deployment, I was just like, I can't physically or mentally bear this anymore. And it kind of sucked because I went after my deployment, I went and I did other trainings. I went to Mississippi for a month. I went to Seattle for a month to try to learn different things. And it was fun, and it was a cool experience, but I just couldn't, like, still. I would get home, like, the only thing that would motivate me to get on the plane to do these trainings was to get paid. No sense of learning new skills or new trades. Just doing the bare minimum to get through this month of training and fucking get the check and go back home and get drunk every day again. and then whenever it was time to re-enlist, like, I just told them no. Like, I'm not. My contract ends. That was my first contract, was 8 years, and when that shit ended, when it was time, so I got out in 2023, and they're like, "Do you want to re-enlist?" I was like, "Nope." Like, I just didn't. I didn't even give them I didn't even bring it up to them. I knew my contract was expiring, and I just let that shit quietly fizzle out. And I told them, "Yep, my contract expired this day, and this is my last day of drill. I'll show up, and none of that. I'm done." I'm like, okay, well, and there was no, and the shitty thing is that, and again, that's on me for not saying anything, but even people from my unit didn't even try to ask me, like, are you okay? Like, how come you're not wanting to re-enlist? Like, is there something going on? Like, we think you're a good sailor. Like, we think that you're motivated. You're a motivated guy. Like, there was none of that. There was no feeling of being, I don't want to say being wanted, but, like, yeah, being wanted, like, as a viable part of this community, or as a viable part of this unit. And even after, and even like my last day of drill, my last day of being in uniform, like, I took that shit off and I just put it in my closet, and that was it. Like, it wasn't anything. It wasn't like, there was no big fucking farewell. It was just, I left drill, came home, and went talked. I don't even remember what my last day was even like. At this point, it's been 3 years now, and it's been in the back of my head, and nowadays when I think about it, it's like, was all that shit just for nothing? Like, was all that shit just to get paid? And like, again, I got my degree from it. I could still go back to school. I got, obviously being a veteran, I collect benefits. I'm disabled, but there's that aspect of it, right? Which is all good and well, but there's this underlying sense of, like, I feel like I could have done more. Like I could have done 20 years. I could have did this deployment. I could have done that. I could have talked to these people. Like, you know, all the people that I knew in boot camp and in my A school are all married with kids now that they met in the military, and I'm still single. And it's like, what do you, like, everybody looks so, all my friends that are still in, they all look so, you know, they're all still doing stuff. They made a rank, they made E5, they made, you know, they got their warfare device and all this good stuff. And I never made it past E4, and I didn't get any fucking warfare devices. I got some ribbons, but again, like, that was on, and I know that's all on me, but I feel like I could have at least done that. I could have got to E5. I could have, but I did 8 years as an E4 and did one deployment and said I'm not happy no more and left. And for some weird reason, that doesn't feel justified. Like it, like my 8 years does not feel justified at all. And I don't know, and like I don't know if that's good or bad. Like I don't lose sleep over it. I don't like get mad about it, but you know, it's one of those things where, especially at those formative years in your life from 18 to like 26, you know, you want to think that what you're doing means something. And nowadays, now that I'm sitting here unemployed trying to make my art work, like I did 8 years just to be in this position, right? And that's the thing that like I said, I don't know if it hurts the most, if it's actually, you know, something to be mad about, sad about. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful that it happened. But I feel like there's a part of me that's ungrateful for a lot of things, and I don't know if that bothers me or not. And quite frankly, like sometimes when I talk about this type of shit with my military stuff and mental health and wondering if shit means anything, like I feel like I'm just being a bitch half the time. Who really gives a shit? Like, yeah, bro, like, you signed up, you know what you were signing up for, you signed a contract, you did your contract, and that's it. Like, that should be it. Like, there should be no overthinking these types of situations, especially when it comes to the government and the military. Like, you gave them what you signed up for, and you gave them your time, and you sacrificed. And if you want to leave, you have the right to leave. But maybe it's just me. I put that pressure on myself to fucking want to be more and want to be better, but I wasn't being like, I knew that what I was doing wasn't what I want to do for the rest of my life, and there was so much shit that I was missing out on because of it. Like the happiest that I've ever been was in 2017, where I was like broke. Like I had like $50 in my account, and I waited outside of a Deftones concert for like 12 hours, and I got to talk to Chino for like 20 minutes, and that made me more that at that moment in time was more meaningful to me than being in Dubai, being on top of the Burj Khalifa, seeing that city. Like, it was cool, but that shit isn't something that I look at as something that's really that great. But meeting someone who's been an actual inspiration in my life that I can talk to and tell them, you know, how much their music meant to me, that is something that holds the most weight. And maybe I'm just fucking crazy. I'm literally like I'm legitimately fucking crazy because like I said, any normal person would be happy as hell to be in Dubai making that much money on deployment, whatever, right? But I wasn't. And I don't know what the fuck's wrong with me that I was not happy. It actually, like, bugs me a lot. But, you know, at the end of the day, there isn't anything I can do about it now. Like, I just hope that I can reach a point to where, you know what, you know, I did it. I did it, you know, with everything that I had. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And be happy with that. But until then, shit, maybe I need to fucking, I don't know. Maybe I need to actually talk to other veterans, see what their view is. And the last thing to do, especially with shit like that, is like go on the internet and go on Reddit and see how everybody else feels, because that shit's like, you hear the same story, and everyone, and plus too, everybody's situation is different. Not everyone goes through the exact same thing, especially in that field of work. So, but for now, I feel like I need to. Well, not need to. I feel like I need to. I have to get a level of acceptance, and I think acceptance is really the only thing for now that can be at least the healthiest way to look at it. I mean, at this point, I kind of just look at it and laugh, but either way, it's good to talk about it for once. And now there's that lore drop. I don't really know if I'm going to talk about like my deployment. Honestly, I think that would be a good topic because that shit was fucking nuts. But we'll see. Anyway, thanks for the therapy session, y'all. Peace.